Well, hey folks, it's your old pal, King Waspinator here, and tonight I felt like talking a little bit about the Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. Now, I have invested quite a hefty penny over the last month in these books, largely because I broke a bunch of ribs and have a lot of time on my hands, and I've been kind of wanting to find a new game. And whereas the old FASA version of the Star Trek role-playing game from the 90s never really quite did it for me, this version really stirs the imagination well. It's primarily based upon the original Star Trek canon. There's very little to no mention of anything related to any of the movies that J.J. Abrams produced or the current crop of shows being made by CBS All Access. It is pretty much entirely based around the original series, Enterprise, and the Next Generation era shows, which is exactly what I'm looking for myself. So I've been delving into this. I have not yet had a chance to play it in person, so there's some things about the rule system what I'm not exactly sure how it's going to feel in play. But after getting my head around the rules concept for this game, I find it interesting. The character creation is a breeze and creates characters that are very Star Trek-y. And I just felt like kind of a general overview of the core books that I feel are going to be the most helpful if you're a potential game master looking to do this as a project for you and your player group. So right off the bat, you're going to want to get the core rule book. They also have a deluxe edition, but these books are kind of pricey, so I decided to go with the $55 one instead of the $75 one. It's still a pretty thick book. The production quality is excellent in terms of art and layout. The interior is all designed to kind of have like an LCARS kind of vibe, you know, the computer system from the older shows. If there's any complaint I have to be levied against the books in terms of quality, is they do have a few typos here and there, especially in the supplemental books. Now, beyond the core rule book, there are 3 books that are like the Divisions rule book, the 3 main sections of Starfleet. The book for the Command Division, the book for the Operations Division, and the book for the Sciences Division. All 3 are useful in terms of giving expanded options for player characters, and they each in their own way try to add some additional supplemental rules to enhance and fill in some gaps that the main core rule book didn't have space for. Of these, I find the Operations and the Science Divisions possibly the most helpful of the 3. Once again, like with the core book, the production quality on them is very nice. Also unique to these 3 books is if you line up the covers just right, it forms a larger picture of a scene of a crash-landed starship on the surface of some alien world, which is, you know, just kind of neat. And it's a nice painting. The Sciences Division obviously gives you kind of, you know, a bunch of tips on making new alien races and unique beings for the characters to encounter. The Operations Division book, of particular note, from my point of view, it greatly expands the equipment lists of what's to be found in the core rulebook for characters to choose special kind of devices and stuff that they might have access to. That's not standard issue. Operations also has rules for using miniatures, although that's of less interest to me. But if you like using minis in your role-playing games, the Operations Division would be the book to pick up. Modifius does seem to sell miniature set, although they don't appear to be painted. So that's a good chunk of why I'm not interested in getting into that part of it. Because I don't like painting minis. So, you know, if that's your thing, good on you. The world needs you. But I'm not one of those people. The Command Division is possibly the least useful, because it mostly just deals with pilots and people with command authority. It does have like some guidelines if you want to run a Admiralty level campaign, which personally doesn't sound interesting to me, but you know, there's lots of different people in the world, so that might be your thing. And it has like a few extra starships, but there's starships scattered throughout all the books, so it's not like you're lacking in options on those. Now, speaking of starships, though, there is an interesting thing in the game that the starships are also designed very much along the same lines as player characters, including being able to give them optional talents and beef up their skills and whatnot. So I mean, it does a good job, I guess, of capturing that thing from the TV show that, you know, the Enterprise itself is also part of the cast of characters. So, there's 4 other books that I consider essential if you're going to be running a Star Trek Adventures role-playing game. And they are the source books for each of the 4 quadrants of the galaxy. Alpha, Beta, Delta, and Gamma. Now, in order of importance, I would say that the Beta Quadrant is actually the most important of these source books, just to be able to understand the core setting of Star Trek. Because a lot of people kind of perceive Earth to be an Alpha Quadrant planet, but it's really more a Beta Quadrant planet. Most of the core races, the OG races of Star Trek, are Beta Quadrant, up to and including the Klingons and the Romulans and the Vulcans and a lot of the early races. But the Alpha Quadrant is given, I guess, kind of like a bigger role in the minds of a lot of Star Trek fans because of how often it is referenced by both Voyager and Deep Space Nine. But the Alpha Quadrant is really more the area of space that the Federation is better able to have expanded into as time has gone along. And they do have a much larger presence in the Alpha Quadrant, even though it's really not the place of origin for the Federation. The Alpha Quadrant book is also good. Has really excellent sections on a lot of classic alien races. The Gamma Quadrant is also a pretty damn good source book. The history of Dominion is very thorough. Period. The researching that was done for this game system, they put a lot of work into making sure it fits properly into the OG classic continuity of Star Trek without being jarring or breaking canon in any way. Now, last but not least, we got the Delta Quadrant. Possibly the weakest book out of all the books I've discussed. It does have a lot of extensive information on the Borg. That is interesting in and of itself, but it might as well have just been a Borg supplement, because the amount of information that is presented about the other species and civilizations to be found in the Delta Quadrant is all a little bit lacking. Whereas they spent like a good chapter and a half just purely talking about the Borg. I mean, which is, if you intend to use Borg in your games, this is definitely a source book for you. But if you want to have a game set in the Delta Quadrant itself, you're gonna want to fish for some supplemental material on the internet to help flesh out, the knowledge needed to properly depict the Krenim Empire or the Kazon or whomever. The Borg are an essential villain, so I don't write this book off entirely. I'm just saying, of all the various core rule books that I've discussed, it's the weakest. They did just recently put out another alternate core rule book for playing Klingons, an old Klingon party set in the Klingon Empire. So instead of Starfleet, they're part of the Klingon, Imperium and doing Klingon missions. I ordered it. It has not arrived yet as the time of me recording this. But, I'm definitely going to check it out, and since it's newer, I'm probably going to do a review just focused on what's to be found in the Klingon core book. These have been out for a few years, and so I would imagine a few people on YouTube must have already discussed all this shit. So, and also, I haven't played it, so my opinion on the rules dynamics, is light. I'm not going to really be able to, really say for sure how any of these things work well or not. I do find that there are some interesting concepts in it, though, especially in terms of how character advancement is supposed to work, because the characters are challenging their own values. It sounds like a good way to encourage role-playing, and as I say, the character creation itself is real easy to do, leads to very unique and very Star Trek-feeling characters, if that makes sense. It's definitely worth checking out if you're willing to shell out, $50 to $100 just to get the basic most things you need. This isn't for your poor guy on the street. So I will say that. So, but if you're looking to still be able to keep Star Trek around in your life and have fresh Star Trek adventures of the kinds that you want to see because you've been disappointed in all the things that CBS All Access and Secret Hideout and Paramount under the umbrella of Bad Robot has done with Star Trek, there's worse things you can invest your time and money on. So check out Star Trek Adventures. I am not sure if they have PDFs available on DriveThruRPG, but I do know that the core books and all the books that I've purchased and have talked about in this video are all on Amazon, and you can probably also find them through Modiphius Entertainment's website as well. So anyway, you'll have a good one, stay waspinated, and as always, go fuck yourself.